So hello, welcome to the Eurobox. Bit more of a calmer show today because it's England's group. But we're gonna start off straight because we're recording this after the game. A lot of the other groups were filmed before their games, but England's one. Fortunately, we couldn't do it on time because I was a bit of technical difficulties on my part, but we are doing it after the England game. But we'll go straight. We'll start with the England game. Respect for what was going on there. It was 1-0 England. Sorry, yeah, 1-0 England. Jude Bellingham goal. But watching that match, it wasn't the best. Joseph, I'll start off with you. As a fellow England fan, what do you think?
Just absolutely ridiculous football in the second half. I've never been more tense going into a group stage game before. There's been points in the group stage, particularly in the World Cup, where in 2018, where there were moments when I was thinking, crikey, we're actually going to lose some of these games. But Serbia were just a better team from about minute 45 onwards. Genuinely the better team. They were pressing. I've got no idea why Serbia didn't start Dusan Tadic because he was on fire for the whole of the second half. And all England could do was try to play out through the middle, but that wasn't working because Phil Foden was getting trapped consistently. And to make it even worse, Harry Kane was being man-marked out of the game. If you haven't got Declan Rice playing in that position in midfield, I think England would have conceded at least one goal in that second half. Of course, he was subbed out at the end for Conor Gallagher, but still, just it's not coming home if you play like this. I've got to say that to start off with. Denmark is going to be so much more difficult. Serbia overperformed by a long way for me. I thought it was going to be Mitrovic FC, in all honesty. I thought it was going to be relying on Mitro. But if they've got that squad going for the whole of the group, they've got a chance of getting out of these group stages. And for England, you can't just rely on Saka making the space on the wings, Bellingham making the touches in midfield, and I suppose somebody like John Stones or Kyle Walker playing in that progressive midfield position. Just, yeah, not exactly a game to remember, really.
It's happened before. It's happened again and again and again. It happened when we played against Croatia in the semi-finals of the World Cup. It happened when we played against Italy in the Euro final. We get one goal, and then we just stop playing football. We just stand there and just let everything just go through. You're going to say something as we also got McCall back on, but we want to offer both sides of the storm. We don't just offer England analysis. We want to offer both sides. We want to offer. But McCall, what are you going to say?
Yeah, we won't emphasize too much attention on the fact of supporting Serbia. I'm going to offer a straight, neutral, analytical side perspective of this game. First of all, thanks for inviting me back. It's great to be on again. Few things. I'll start with Serbia, analysing their squad. First of all, Nikola Milenkovic, with that performance, has earned himself a big money move to Europe. That was unbelievable defending throughout the 90, and he's the reason why England only had two clear-cut chances, one of them taken by Bellingham, one not taken by Harry Kane. Rajkovic was excellent in goal for Serbia, and most of the decisions were good calls from the manager. First of all, taking Goodell off at half-time. I was screaming for that since middle of the half. He was not in the game. His challenges were reckless. He was out of position. And Milinkovic-Savic playing as a 10 role was not working. So what the right decision was dropping Milinkovic-Savic down into midfield, taking off Goodell, who was already on a yellow card, and then bringing on a few more players. One more thing, Kostic's injury was heartbreaking. You saw him in tears, and given the fact he was in tears, it looks like it was something serious that would take him out probably for the whole tournament, which most likely will be his last ever Euros. He's 32 this year. I don't know if he'll be ready for next one. Few more things. Mitrovic coming off was an error from the coaching staff, in my opinion. He was excellent into the game, and Jovic is not someone, as a Real Madrid fan, I tell you that, someone who comes off the bench and makes an influence, and that's exactly what happened. Jovic was hopeless up top. He was dealt with very well by Mark Guehi. He was, by the way, I thought the better of the two centre-backs for England yesterday. We'll get onto that from England's side, and I'm going to agree with Joseph as one of my final points. Dusan Tadic was absolutely unbelievable when he came on. I thought that with Kostic now out for the next game, I think Tadic should be starting as the Serbian captain. in the next game. But overall, really impressed by Serbia. The gegenpress in second half worked. You say they were better side from minute 45. I thought were the better side from minute 30. They got they got the game by the scruff of the neck since the middle of the first half. And I thought at halftime England would come back out as the better side. Well, no. It was just a mirror of what the first half ended. Serbia just kept going on. Vlahovic had a few chances. Mitro was appearing in dangerous positions, one time appealing for a penalty, although that wasn't really a foul. I'd agree with the referee. I thought Osata had a good game. It's obviously one of his final ones in his career. So really impressed by Serbia. I'll let you guys speak as well, but I've got some stuff to say about England later on too.
Yeah, we can't just talk negatives about England. You got to talk about the positives of Serbia as well. Serbia came out there and put on an absolute performance. I feel like they deserved a goal or two. Maybe England is not a goal to put into equalizer, but I would say if we're going back to we got to highlight the positives of Serbia. As you mentioned, Tadic came on and was absolutely immense. You got Milinkovic Savic was amazing. The other Milinkovic, not the Savic, but the defender Milinkovic, he was also really good. He was able to stop Kane when he would be on his runs. Unbelievable. I agree. But we'll carry on with it. We'll go back to England's point of view. We'll point out the squad. They brought in arguably the strongest squad they could. What they've done before in the past was not play the best squad they could. They brought in a few weak links, but this squad is the strongest we can take forward. Mark Gay, as you mentioned, Mikhail, was on form. He was so amazing that game. Jude Bellingham, of course, he had an amazing game with his goal. He was amazing on the ball, getting the ball, going back in defence, getting that ball off the Serbian players. You got Declan Rice was doing some Jordan Pickford in the chance he got, he delivered. He got that save.
He was solid. He was solid on his feet as well.
But what did you guys think of Trent Alexander-Arnold playing that midfield role yesterday, sorry.
I don't think he should start, unfortunately. He performed well in the first half, but against bigger teams, that midfield will be torn to shreds. First half, Mitrovic got a chance thanks to a Trent Alexander-Arnold error. He performed well up top, but against the likes of Spain or Germany or France, the England midfield will collapse. Trent Alexander-Arnold has just simply not played enough in that position. I was quite optimistic him going into that midfield, but looking at yesterday, I think Gallagher should be given a chance next to Rice, especially against bigger sides. I'm just not so sure in Trent's defensive abilities. I wasn't impressed.
Well, the key difference between playing Trent at midfield is that you're not using his defensive abilities. The whole point is that you're using his best attributes, which is his passing. And I actually think that Trent was doing a good job in that mid position, given he hasn't played in that position a lot. Conor Gallagher has had a good season. I admit this, but I think that in that midfield pairing, if you're going to play two in the midfield like England were yesterday, you want that defensively minded player in Declan Rice, and then you want that player that can potentially go forward in Trent. Now, Trent is normally known as a fullback. I think he fell into that fullback role a few years ago just through sheer luck and coincidence. I think it's the best thing for him because he's got amazing passing ability and he would be knocked out of this side entirely if he's playing at fullback. He is not starting over anybody in that defensive line right now. And for me, at least, I've got a bit more faith in Trent in those big games than I have against Conor Gallagher. Because Conor Gallagher, yes, he's had a great season for Chelsea, but it's also a Chelsea side that had one of them that just picked it up towards the end of the year and has been perennially known for having weird results here or there. For me, I think Trent did as good a job as he can. I don't really think the issues in midfield were really Trent's fault. I think the issues in midfield were in the transition from midfield to attack through players like Foden. So for me, actually, I don't really have anything bad to say about Trent because I don't think he's the man to blame.
Yeah, but you need the ball. Trent is good with the ball, and England decided that they don't want the ball from minute 30. And that's when Trent's weaknesses were on display. He was good in the first 30 minutes when England had the ball. He had a few shots. He had great passes all around. But defending as a shape, Trent finds it difficult, which I won't blame him. I would as well if I were him. But if England, they've showed yesterday that they're not going to play with the ball, especially if they're going to score. And if that's going to happen, Trent will be a weakness rather than a strength. If they do have the ball, though, he would be used very well. It depends on how England decide to play and how they decide to line up.
So we're back. I bought my coffee. I believe Joseph's bought a tea or coffee as well. Macau is bringing water
Water.
because he's healthy. But if you're watching this at home, we took a little coffee break. If you want to have a drink, maybe a coffee, a drink, man, enjoy yourself, get some food. But we're going back into the England discussion. So there's some key moments I want to speak about during that England game. So I'll run you through my specific points I want to point out. So obviously we start off with Jude Bellingham's goal. Joseph, would you like to speak more about that?
Beautiful finish. Absolutely beautiful finish from Jude Bellingham. And that goal is all made off the back of Bukayo Saka making a space out on the wing and managing to get that cross into the middle. Hell of a header, too, given that something that people were talking about a lot at the start of the game and before the game was how tall this Serbian side was. Average height in this team, I think it was 6'2", 6'3", and in the back line alone, you had, I believe it was Milenkovic, he was standing at 6'5". So incredibly good job for them to get over the wall. Beautiful header from Jude Bellingham, making the chances when they count. I think that goal has got to come down to Bukayo Saka getting in the chance and actually giving Bellingham the reception that he deserves, that he's been so richly deserving and receiving at Real Madrid this year, which is something we haven't always seen so much, is that pace and that energy from the wings in an England side.
Yeah, if Jude Bellingham was ever going to want to compete for the Ballon d'Or with Vinicius, a goal 10 minutes into his Euro campaign was exactly what he needed. It's a great finish, I agree. Great run from Bellingham. We'll speak more about him and his vital role throughout that game and probably further on in the tournament. I would say England got a bit lucky. I think that's fair to say with the deflection. Serbia would have probably cleared it had it been drilled low by Bukayo Saka. I don't want to take anything away from though. He made a great run. You mentioned it correctly, Joe. Found the pocket of space and then delivered. The deflection took it away over Milenkovic and over another person in midfield and made it impossible for Rajkovic to come out. And then Bellingham, of course, had a bit of an advantage because he was pacing into the 18-yard area to try and head it in. Great header, 1-0. Well deserved for England. First 20 minutes, they were fully on top. Serbia had about 10% possession. It was frankly a bit ridiculous how bad Serbia started that game. So fully deserved goal, really good one, and a proper start for England.
Good points from everyone. Good points from everyone. But moving on we'll move on further into the game. And
Quickly before Lenny, one thing, if we are going to do that, I want to quickly mention first 20 minutes, why I think England started off so well. Southgate started with an interesting way. England would defend as a back four with Walker, Trippier, Stones, and Gueye. And then immediately once the ball was received, they would switch to a back three. Walker would drift into midfield. Foden, he was a left winger. He was not playing at left wing. He would immediately drop into the middle. Jude Bellingham would stay compact. Rice and Trent would stay compact. Kane would go even deeper. And Trippier and Saka would go both ways through the wings. They were given the whole space, the whole area down that left-hand side. And Foden and Bellingham, they were not restricted at all. You could see Bellingham drop into the 6 role, playing as a ball playing playmaker, and then carry the ball. Foden would roam free the way Thomas Muller would have done at Bayern many years ago. They call him Raumdeuter back in Germany. And that worked. That's how England created the early chances. That's how the goal came through Jude Bellingham going from deep into the area. And Serbia struggled to deal with that because Kostic was holding a high line. Down the other end, Zivkovic was holding a high line. And England were doing it very well. So that was a really good tactic. And with a back three, it made it easier for England to defend if Serbia won the ball back because Walker was really tucked in into the central role. Him, Stones, and Gueye would deal with Vlahovic and Mitrovic because Serbia would get outnumbered every time on the ball, and that worked really well in the first 20 minutes. I was really impressed. I even wrote in one of our group chats, I'm really impressed by how England have started and how they've lined up. It didn't quite work for the whole game, though, and that's what I think you were going to get onto, Lenny.
now we'll move on to the set piece that happened towards 30th minute. And well, I would say that's quite a good set piece tactic from England to use. We saw Germany had a really good one where it was 4 guys on the ball, and then it was a nice little pass, and then someone took a shot. But England decided to go for Alexander-Arnold, Foden, Trippier, of course, scoring the goal against Croatia and his free kick. But that free kick was very unlucky. But as we go into the game, this is when Serbia start to dominate over England, I would say. And a lot of, like I would say, aggressive tackles from Serbia's side, but that's the game. But where do you think it goes wrong from here, Joseph?
Where it goes wrong is that the best way to counteract a side that is so attacking is sometimes to attack. And what we saw was just sitting back and sitting deep. And that works if you've got an out and out striker that's able to get the ball and is going to run and is going to be able to counter attack by himself. Harry Kane can do this. Harry Kane is able to counter attack with supreme confidence, but he was being man marked out the game. So Harry Kane is getting man marked out of the game at all. And then on top of that, you haven't really got that cohesive link in the midfield to bring the ball forward to Kane in the first place. So what you end up having is players bunkered in defence, just waiting for the ball to come to them. And the thing was that in the first 30 minutes, let's say, I don't think you particularly saw Serbia pressing in that midfield area much. And then suddenly you saw them knocking on the door about once every 2 minutes as England were trying to defend the ball. And you saw players like Bellingham playing randomly in defence. I think I saw Bellingham playing at almost a right centre-back role about 3-4 times in the second period. So it was just a case of not attacking the game and wanting to sit back and just defend the goals, which I think, again, if Kane isn't being marked out the game, that plan works. But he was up against an incredibly strong centre-back and against an incredibly strong defensive line that knew what the job was. And the job was make sure Harry Kane does not get the ball once in this second half. I mean, how many touches was it in the first half? It was one touch. I mean, with the exception of the header he had, it was nothing for him. So I think the issue was that the game plan was flawed because Serbia did well to get past it.
I was joking throughout the game that Kane has taken the role of Jack Grealish in the absence of the Manchester City winger. How many fouls did he pick up? Around 11, I counted throughout the game, maybe a bit less. Kane was taken out of the game by tactical fouls, usually man marked, you mentioned it right, by 2 Serbian defenders, and only one of those fouls was a yellow card foul. So these were small tactical fouls, usually very far away from goal, because Kane would have to drop so deep. And they worked for Serbia. What I was surprised to see is the lack of individual quality from Foden and not enough movement down the wings from Saka and then later Bowen. Because every time Saka would go at Serbian defenders, he would beat them 1v1 because he has the quality. That's how the goal came. That's how later on chances came. And that's how the Kane chance came when Bowen drifted past defenders. 1v1, England had the quality to beat Serbian defenders. One thing that other surprised me, why England did not want to keep possession. Because this Serbian team is strong with the ball. They've got enough players in that team who are strong on the ball. They've got Milinkovic-Savic, who's an excellent ball-playing midfielder. They had Tadic come on. They had Kostic before he went off. Defenders for Serbia can play with the ball. And even the likes of Vlahovic, despite being a striker, are excellent with their feet. So with the ball, Serbia can create. And England, they can't really defend without the ball in a squad like that. Foden is not good at... He's not used to defending. He's not what he does at Man City. Most of the players in the side are play for teams that like to play with possession. So it didn't quite work for England. And Serbia just increased their intensity. They used tactical fouls to break England down and then eventually found their chances. They didn't take them in the end, but were close.
Now that ends our Serbia discussion, England-Serbia discussion. But we want to say, what do you think England have to do going into their next game, to improve?
I think the key for England is to be able to have a better strategy when it comes to playing out from the fullbacks. Because a lot of the time, what we saw was it was either a pass from Walker to the midfield or a pass from Stones to the midfield. Gay wasn't really playing in terms of the distribution side of the game. And I think the key issue there was it was a lot of who fit long. And they were trying to play in the midfield. But the thing was that it was only really from the midfield where you started to see the passes being strung together. So what I'll be looking for is giving the defensive line the options to play out from the back. Because in that first 25, 30 minutes of the game, England were unstoppable. compared to the Serbian side in terms of distribution and in terms of playing the ball out of defensively dangerous areas. Towards the second half, it was just Pickford booting it long, hoping to get onto the head of either Bowen or Rice. So I think the key thing here is, can they be able to handle the pressure in a defensive line better than they had done against Serbia?
Yeah, I think one more thing. There's a few things I'm a bit worried about. One was John Stones. He was supposed to be the leading centre back at England. He did not impress. He was a bit slow. He was a bit lethargic at times. One of the chances when Dusan Vlahovic drilled it across the box, Stones was 2 paces behind him, although they started on the same line. So that was a problem. Guehi was actually the better of the two, I thought, throughout yesterday's night. I think if Luke Shaw's fit, I think Luke Shaw should get back into this lineup. You could see how Trippier struggled with his right foot. You need a left-footed left back for the game. And I'm going to keep saying it. I want to see Foden at 10. Yes, him and Bellingham drifted around quite well, but you could see they would take up the same space. You could only have one of them in the 10 role, and they try to play the two together. I'm still interested to give it a go. Maybe against Slovenia, give a go for Eze Gordon on the left. I still think that could work for England. Drop Bellingham deeper next to Rice and put Foden at 10. Foden needs to play at 10. He needs to be given a chance so he can use that space. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think England will improve. Realistically, the teams that won international competitions through the last few years, the likes of France in the World Cup, the likes of Argentina in the World Cup, the likes of England themselves before reaching the final in Euro 2021, they start off slow. They start off slow. Portugal and France in 2016 started slow. I think England will improve. Second game, I believe it's Slovenia next for England, or is it Denmark? It's Denmark for England. Denmark is vulnerable at the back. We saw it. Harry Kane usually finds his boots. So I think it will improve. I think there's reason to stay optimistic. And most importantly, England got the 3 points.
That's all good. That's all good. We'll now move on to the other game that happened in Group C. We won't not give them some light, some spotlight. Slovenia versus Denmark, a 1-1 draw with Ericsson coming back after his 2020 unfortunate circumstances for him, but he came back, he got his goal, and I saw you spoke a bit about it before, Mikal. So would you like to speak?
Beautiful story. 1,100 days exactly since he collapsed in Copenhagen against Finland 44 minutes into his first game at Euro 2020. 3 years later, he played a full 90, scoring the equalizing goal and getting man of the match. Beautiful story. We all remember how it happened. We thought that was the end of his career. Well, could have been the end of his life at that moment. He was out for 8 months, was kicked out of Italy where he was not allowed to play with a defibrillator, had to go all the way down to Brentford. From being a starting player at Serie A winning side Inter, he had to go down all the way to Brentford. No offense to Brentford, but of course that was a step down for Ericsson. Fought his way back into the national team, scored on his very first game in a friendly against Netherlands, got into the United squad, was a key part for their first season, won 2 trophies at United, and now he finds himself as the vice captain of the Danish national team and scoring a goal on his very first game. How symbolic is that? I was very emotional yesterday when it happened. I thought it was a beautiful moment, and that's what we love the game for. Immense character from the man, and it's just what you want to see in the first match to a Euro.
Exactly. It's a great story, isn't it, Mikal? And in terms of his performance, he's been proving that he's been able to play at that high level still. And actually, in all honesty, he is a player who deserves that chance to actually be able to play at the high level again. It was a real shame he was banned from Serie A. That was a real shame, but probably a quirk in a rule that no one ever thought was going to be pulled up with a player playing with defibrillator. But still, an absolutely amazing moment. And I think even if Denmark will be disappointed with the game, still an amazing historic moment for Ericsson himself.
Yeah, I think even exclude the goal, Ericsson was unbelievable for the whole 90. He stayed on for 90 minutes, not because he's Christian Eriksen or not because he's just come back. He stayed on because he was the best player on the pitch. Yeah. Some of his passing was excellent. Some of the movement was excellent. Denmark were brilliant in the first half if we get onto the game a bit. I was very impressed. I thought, wow, they're back. They're back with a bang like they did in 2021. Well, second half was a very different tale, wasn't it?
Yeah, certainly was. I think the key thing for me is that it's just the conversion from Denmark is missing. I know that this Slovenia side has got some great players in there. You look at players like Seshko and you look at players like Jan Oblak as well, who are in that side. But 16 shots over the whole game for Denmark, only 4 on target. And Denmark had some amazing, amazing chances throughout this game. They've got to take these chances somehow. And again, if I was a Danish fan, I would be incredibly disappointed with this result because you look at it and you think, my word, how do you not get 3 points out of this game? I understand Slovenia were probably playing better football than all of us expected, but you look at that league table now, and England, if they win one more game against the Danes potentially next up, they're through to the last 16. And then you've got a real battle on our hands for that second and third place spot now. Serbia are a really good side off the back of what we're seeing for England. And Slovenia can actually defend a low block pretty well, given that Denmark were trying for nearly the whole of the second half. We might see Denmark crashing out in the group stage, which would be off the back of there being no conversion from the forwards.
To be fair, it would be a disaster for Denmark. They had an awful campaign in Qatar, bottom with Tunisia and Australia. That stands for itself. 2 tournaments in a row with a squad like that, which arguably is a golden generation. It's the best team Denmark have had since 1992. And finishing second they were brilliant in Russia in 2018. I watched them live. They had some brilliant performances. They were obviously amazing in 2021. And now 2 tournaments like that would be a shame. But it's actually going to go either way. Obviously, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Serbia in the battle of these 3 teams for second. But realistically, bias aside, it could be anyone. And I mean anyone getting that second place. Shesko came out like a man who wants a big money move and almost came close on 2 occasions, especially the last one where he hit the woodwork. Luckily for Slovenia, the very next corner resulted in a goal. So that was okay. It was a deflected goal, but it was very deserved. And Slovenia almost went on to win that game. The last 10 minutes, you would not want to be a Danish fan. But looking at England and Serbia, I'd still bet for Serbia to finish second in their group.
Going through their squad for Slovenia, they have the standout goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers in the tournament, in the form of Jan Oblak. In the game, he was quite good, you could say, but without his Atletico Madrid defense, you could say he was a bit targeted very easily. And would you say he might struggle in this tournament?
He is going to struggle, I think, because he's a great keeper, but also very, very prone to having shots lobbed at him. I haven't looked at the stats in terms of how many shots or saves he had throughout the game, but it's probably going to be a large, large number. And the issue with Slovenia is it is going to be minimizing the goals. They can score goals when they want to. They've got players up front that can score goals, but it's going to be tricky for them to, well, firstly, stay in games when they're maybe 1 goal down or maybe 2 goals down, but also when they are trying to keep goal difference up, because goal difference is going to be a huge factor when it comes to best third place. I think the third place team in this group has got a really strong chance of qualifying for the last 16. You've probably got maybe a draw, maybe another draw, maybe a win. You're looking at only 4 or 5 points potentially, and that would get you third. I think that one of these teams has got a real chance of qualifying, but that goal difference is going to be a huge thing. Right now, they're all level, and Serbia as well. They're only on -1. But I think it's going to come down to a game or two where the defense is particularly strong or weak. They ship a few goals here or there, and that decides who gets last 16 in these Euros.
Yeah, Oblak is off the back of a tricky campaign with Atletico Madrid. He's not the keeper he used to be. His actual prime, he was a second choice keeper for Slovenia with Samir Handanovic as the national team captain. An incredible story. A small country like Slovenia having 2 unbelievable keepers in their squad. However, Oblak is back. He's performed well yesterday. The goal was not much of his fault. Eriksson had a clean run through the middle with a clever back heel as well. I think from Jonas Wind for Denmark. I would say Denmark would be disappointed with the fact they've got England next. because I think England would want to bring it home, bring that first place to a certainty in the second game. They're going to put out their best 11, maybe with a change or two. Although, despite my opinion, I think there's going to be the same squad for England. And then rotation in the third game. So Slovenia are a bit lucky here. They'll be playing a less motivated England side in a way. So the schedule favors them. Serbia will be going from all cylinders at Slovenia. So Denmark are in a tricky space at the moment, and they find themselves in arguably the most difficult position.
Yes. When we look further into the Slovenia squad, you got a player that comes back in the form of Josip Ilicic. Of course, coming off his seasons at Atalanta, amazing player. Unfortunately, due to unfortunate circumstances, took some years out, retired early for a bit, but then he's back now. He's back in that Slovenia squad. So, what more can you speak about him as a player going into the Slovenia squad?
It's another beautiful story of Group. Was it Group C? Yeah, Group C. Another beautiful story. Yeah, we all know he struggled with mental health, and it's great to see how he's battled his way through that. Found his form at Maribor. Had actually a really good. There's a reason he's in the squad. He's in the squad after a really good campaign with Maribor at the age of 36. If you look at some of his highlights in the Slovenian league, that man has still got it. That man has got techers, if you speak it in that way. He has got immense ball control and he has got some amazing finishing. So he could actually add to this side. And against Serbia, against the likes of Milenkovic, a tired Serbian side by match day 2, he could be a factor for the last 10, 15 minutes, especially as Šeško finds himself a bit exhausted. Or maybe next to him. Who knows? Serbia 1-0 up. You bring on Šeško and Ilicic and cause the back line of Serbia all sorts of problems. So it's great to see him back. It's another beautiful story. And I expect him to play at some point in this tournament. Whether that will be match day 2 or match day 3, it'll depend a lot on how Slovenia's campaign progresses. It's going as good as expected so far, maybe even better. So I'd expect to see him.
Now, moving on to my final player, I want to pick out. You previously mentioned him, Mikhail, Benjamin Sesko. He announced a few days ago, I'd say, that he's staying at Leipzig. So possible and big move, probably not being halted for now. He'll probably play another season for them and then make his big move. But how do you feel Sesko will do in this tournament? People are calling him out to be possible one of the top players in this if they make it out of the groups. But how do you feel he'll do in this tournament?
He's got to go on him. That's all I'll say. He's got to go on him. I think that will come next week or this week even. We're on Monday now. Wow, time flies when you watch the Euros all day, every day. Yeah. Joe, you know him quite well. You reckon he's got to go on him, hasn't he?
Certainly has got a goal in him. And he's going to be the danger man for this Slovenian side. And I think just looking at where he was taking his shots from in that game, he was taking shots from places you're not expecting players of his caliber to take shots. The best chance he had all game was an absolute rip-roaring shot from about 25, 30 meters away, nearly managed to nestle right into the top left-hand corner. And arguably, it was arguably beating Schmeichel. I think he's a great player. I don't know if he's got the reception to potentially be able to score consistent goals in this Euros, but I think he's got an absolute wonder goal in him, which might be just enough for the Slovenian side to qualify for the last 16. And I think that's where they've got to focus now, is just giving him the chance to play with the ball, because this is what we see with a lot of the smaller sides, is just giving the reception to those big names and being able to level up when other players have already leveled up regardless.
Yeah.
Good discussion about Slovenia. We'll now move on to the team they played the other day, Denmark. When we look at their squad, so Denmark with their keepers have 3 outstanding keepers. You've got Kasper Schmeichel, you've got Frederick Ronau, and you've got Mads Hermansen. 3 really good goalkeepers. Mads Hermansen, obviously coming off the bat of an amazing season in the championship with Leicester getting promoted. Union Berlin not having the best of seasons this year, but Ronau has still stood out in the form of he's got his 7 clean sheet in 33 matches. Not the best, but he won't be starting, I believe, for Denmark, because you have Kasper Schmeichel, who still practically, after a decade of playing for Denmark, still starts for their team. Now you move on to defense, an amazing defense. You got Simon Kjær, you got
He no
Matthias
longer starts
Christensen.
actually for Denmark, surprisingly. He no longer starts for Denmark, surprisingly.
Yes, yesterday when I saw the game, he was on the bench. You got Yannick Vestergaard, you got Andreas Christensen, you got I'm gonna say his name right, Anderson, but I don't want to pronounce his first name wrong. Rasmus Christiansen, Alexander Barr, Joachim Marley, Marla, sorry, and Victor Christiansen from Bologna. So, would you like to speak more about that defense, Joseph?
It's a very strong defense, and it's a strong that's got proven talent, not only in one of the best leagues in the world, in the Premier League. Of course, Yannick Vestergaard was at Leicester, and also before that, Southampton. And you've got Joachim Andersen as well, who's been part of the best on form side in the Premier League, Crystal Palace. I will say that. I don't think anyone can disagree with me on top of that as well. And a player like Christensen as well, who, of course, even if Barcelona's season didn't quite go to plan, has been really well performed and actually has been performing a really good job in that setup, even if it's been a bit of a tricky season, even picking up goals, for example, as did against Girona earlier on this year. It's a great defensive setup. Christensen's
PSG as
also in
well.
that setup too.
PSG
Pardon?
as well. PSG as well.
PSG as well. Yes, of course. Good shout actually. And also in that setup as well, you've got some great players who can come back and defend sometimes. Even a player like Højbjerg sometimes can play a deeper role if he wants to. It's a really strong defense, and it showed in the game against Slovenia. Such a good squad, and this squad should be getting past Slovenia. This is what I'm going to say, that this is a game they'll be thinking we should have got 3 points out of, because this squad can go far if they want to. And I think, particularly given you've got Kasper Schmeichel, who's been getting consistent game time at Anderlecht, despite missing out on game time for a few years as he pinballed around his career. That back line is very strong. And I think compared to, say, England, who they'll play next up, England are going to have to try really hard to get past that defence. But in terms of Denmark alone, and talking about Denmark, super strong defence. Again, doesn't help it if you can't convert up top.
Talk about up top, we'll move on to the midfielders. You got Christian Eriksen, you got Thomas Delaney, you got Christian Nørgaard, you got his several teammates, you got Matthias Jensen, you got Michael Damsgaard, if I pronounce Mikkel Damsgaard.
Yeah.
This fellow Mikkel helping his name. You've got Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, you got Jakob Brun Larsen, and you got Morten Hjulmand. And then we move on to the forwards. You got Yusuf Poulsen. He's been there for a long time.
Only
I remember
30
I
years.
was younger, he was there. He's still there now. Kasper Dolberg, he's moved from Nice since the last Euros. You've got Anders Dreyer, you got Andreas Skov Olsen, you got Jonas Wind, and you got Rasmus Højlund. So, talking about those midfielders and attackers, how do you feel that stands out? Who do you think stands out, Mikhail?
I think Eriksen stands out. Højlund stands out. He's very ready for this tournament. You saw it yesterday, the desire he had going into Slovenia. He came close a few times. Højbjerg was always the leader on this Danish side through that midfield, but after a season like that, whether he's at his best, we'll have to wait and see. Players like Mele and Damsgaard, we remember them from Euro 2021. Unfortunately, they don't find themselves in their best form and therefore not starting. I was happy Denmark went with two strikers up top because Vint deserved to start. 15 goals, I think, for Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga this season, maybe 14. So him and Højlund looked quite lively on in the first half. But with a second half like that, Denmark's coaching staff would look at it and think, okay, we need to change things up because second half was a disaster. Team didn't stay focused. And against England or Serbia, they'd be punished, and they'd be punished on numerous occasions. So I think there'll be changes. The likes of Eriksen, Højlund, Højbjerg will still lead the line, and they're the players to watch. But whether Denmark would want to adjust things, maybe even bring back Simon Kjær in the squad just for that extra bit of leadership, we'll have to wait and see.
Thank you for joining us on the Eurobox. I've been Lenny. I was also muted for a second, but I've been Lenny. Thank you for joining me, Joseph, again. Thank you for joining me again, Mikhail. And we'll come on for another episode. Hopefully my mic's not muted next time. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe. And if you're watching on a streaming platform. Make sure to follow and drop a 5-star rating. And Makar, end us off with a pack opening.
I ran out.